back to the Gilbert Invader and its AJ30 Jaguar V6 stroke Ford Duratec V6 engine running on the Motorsport Electronics ME360. Now, last time I looked at it, I just about managed to get VVT working, or variable valve timing, and the jury's still out on whether that is successful, as it were, or not. So clearly the car needs a proper rolling road set up at some point. But with all these things, especially over the winter, things have gone a bit more slowly, and I've been kind of focused on getting the thing roughly working, hence my work on the exhaust, for example, before I take it anywhere professional, as it were. But one of the things, or two of the things actually, about the engine, so VVT I've mentioned, the other thing it has is IMT, which is inlet manifold tract, variable IMT. It's got two rotary valves in the inlet manifold, which determine how long the inlet manifold actually is, having different effects on the torque curve. And I was trying to think how to do that. Now, unfortunately, the ME360 doesn't have a spare RPM sensitive relay control, not what I can find anyway. But I was thinking, surely I've seen somewhere another VVT controller, which, and a VVT is RPM sensitive, so could I use the PWM controller for the spare VVT to do IMT? That's what I was thinking. I thought, well, yeah, you can switch on a relay, you can switch on the VVT valve itself maybe with a PWM control. But then I realised the awful truth. And the awful truth is the spare VVT control isn't spare at all. It's because it's a V6 engine. There's 4 camshafts, and basically the VVT-B, or part 2, the VVT-2, VVT-B is for the other bank. And I've never set it up. What does this mean? It means the VVT has only been enabled on half the engine. This is almost unbelievable. So anyway, before I go any further, and hopefully this will start, it's been sitting here switched on for a little while, I'll just demonstrate kind of how the engine is. I'll check what your view is. So, okay, let's start the engine and see how it sounds. So that is how the engine appears at the moment. But let me take you over to the MEITE management screen. MEITE. So here you see a trace of what's been going on just now. In fact, the way I've got VVT set up at the minute is that it starts to actuate at 4,000 RPM, and then we have a target advance of 30 degrees. Now, I don't properly understand VVT. This is copied from a manual that I found online. But there's two things about this. So we have VVT-A, closed loop, meaning that it basically measures the advance and makes it the advance it should be in a closed way. But what we haven't got showing here is VVT-B. If I bring that up, here we are, off. So VVT on the second bank is currently switched off. And if you look at the target advance curve for VVT 2, there it is. It's just static 30 degrees, but it's all disabled anyway, so it doesn't really matter what it says. So that's bad enough. So this table is kind of irrelevant at the moment anyway, because it's disabled. But what is perhaps worse is this thing. Going back to VVT-A again. Inverted, yes, it says. Now this comes, let me turn you around. Let's see. Yeah. So, what does that mean? So this comes down to some experiments I did when I was investigating the VVT valve. So it's an hydraulic oil controlled system, and there's two valves basically. The valves are operated by solenoids, and what I discovered was that when the valve is not energized, the valve is open. In other words, oil is free to flow through to the cam actuator. So as far as I can understand, what that means is that by default VVT is enabled even at 0 RPM, and in fact by closing the valve that actually switches VVT off. So presumably this means that the low engine RPM we had just now, one valve was in one side was enabled and it was disabled. So VVT is enabled on bank B without doing anything at all. So that can't be right, can it? So let's have a look at that. So going back to MEITE screen again. So we're going to go and put in mode table set 2, and we're going to switch inverted to yes. So that is the same now. So we have, oh no, it should be closed loop as well. Closed loop. So it's now the same as on bank A. And we then bring up also cam VVT2 target advance, and this should be zeros right across until to match the other, basically to match the other table, the other cam, which comes in at 4,000. Right, I think I found a quicker way of adjusting the values all at once. So I've selected the whole section and clicked on the value, and it's now giving me a value which I'm hoping I'm going to do all of them at once. So it's 0. Okay, yep. So that should now, just check the other panel is the same. So we've got it coming in at 4,000. Oh no, I've got it coming in at 4,500. Right, I'll just change that. Hang on, what did I say? So 3.5, so 4,000 should, yeah, okay, so these ones here should in fact be 30. And of course there's ability to choose this figure, so this is a figure which is, if you like, open to debate, but let's at least have it consistent. All right. So I think file, it's been a while since, yeah, save. And that's giving me a new calibration of file dated today, which is showing, what is that, 6th of February at 2:15, is that the time? Yeah. Okay, save. And I'm pretty certain we'd have to do we have to restart? Surely we have to restart the ECU to do that. Well, I'm going to do it anyway. Let me lean over. Right, so I didn't switch it off for long enough. So now I'll switch it back on again. And there we are. Alright, so VVT, we have closed loop. This is VVT B settings. Closed loop, so basically a copy of VVT A. Closed loop using a different table. I probably could have chosen the same table looking at it. Yeah, let's have a. Yeah, I could have chosen the very same table. Oh well, we've got two different ones that are exactly the same instead. Okay, good. So that's that then. So hopefully now we've got the correct setting for VVT. Right, so we don't need both open. And I'm trying to close this thing, VVT. Right, let's go to another thing. So outputs, there we go. No, what is it? Ah, so I need to close. Oh, there we go. Right. So another little, yeah, okay. So another thing which is relevant to this is the two solenoids. Now, you might remember last year that I had some trouble with one of my fuel injectors where it was basically there was a short circuit in the wiring. So because of that, I'm keen to see if I can test. We've got two VVT solenoid controls, and as well as the setting of VVT, you can use the same output on the control here to be a test. So I'm going to choose a slow toggle on VVT A. So let's see what happens. Can you hear that? Tick tock, tick tock. So that's good. So that's, you can actually hear it working. This is a remarkably useful test type of function which can be used for fuel injectors as well. So put that back to VVT-A, wherever VVT-A is. And then VVT-B, which is I'm also going to test. Where's it gone? Ah, slow toggle, so VVT-B. Now it's a fast toggle, you won't hear that. Slow toggle. Right, VVT B is now slow toggling, tick tock, proving that A, it's wired up, and B, that it's working. So let's put that back to VVT B. Now I am actually wondering whether that's the correct way round, but this is a different question. No, I can't have two the same. So let's set that back to VVT B, wherever that is. There it is. So that should be that, and we'd now be able to test what happens. Right, so if I'm correct, if I start the engine now, we should have both cams advanced the same. I wonder what will happen. install. Now I do still have a persistent problem of stalling. It's worse when it's cold, but this is a detail. But is it worse? I don't know. But for the sake of argument, let's have a look at the VVT screen, see what's actually happening. In fact, here are some more settings which I also need to put in. So the rest advance 590 is what it was before on VVT-A, so make that the same as well. I'm simply going to make it the same as VVT-A. That appears to be identical. So on the face of it, I'll save that map. On the face of it, that should be correct. Let's make it a little bit bigger for you. Let's make the screen vertical, centralized. Yeah, so here we have VVT-B, the other bank, because it's a V6, which previously was disabled, is now closed loop, which means the system will look at the cam current advance and adjust it compared to that until it's correct, because the valve itself is opened or controlled rather by PWM, pulse width modulation, meaning that it can be slightly open or completely open or completely closed, and it's not just like an on-off. So in actual fact we could have continuously variable cam timing, which is in fact what the later versions of this engine had anyway. But anyway, well, that's a very much detailed thing. But we've got closed loop, it's looking at the table, which is in fact, I could have used the same table, but it's we've got two versions of the same table instead. And yeah, those two things should be identical now. So that's also a slight change. And I put in, while we were looking at it, I put in, what did I put in? Minimum TPS, which is throttle position sensor, 50%. There's no point in having VVT enabled when you've got your foot off the throttle, really, is there? So let's see if that kind of makes any difference. Of course, this has to be tested on the road. I have already noticed that the note, let's say, of the engine indeed does change when you welly it up the road, which I certainly can't do stationary here in my garage tent. But I'm looking for something to be slightly different, at least, hopefully better. And bear in mind that the ECU has got the learning function, then presumably it will now go and learn again differently, and I'll be a little bit closer to having a correct setup than I was before. So let's change over and see if there's anything different from last time. And zoom you out. Oh no, actually what I'm going to do, you don't really need to see me in the driver's seat, do you? What I can do, and I can watch this back, is I'll close those tables down and I'll watch. So we have the current advance setting, which I believe to be the correct figure from last year. And what I'm looking for is for the VVT status to go from inactive to active. So I won't be able to see that from where I'm sitting, but you will, and then I will when I watch it back. Squeezing past the tripod here, so let's see what happens. Now what I noticed there, maybe you did too, that was something like a rev limiter coming in. So that's not quite right, and it's not how it was before either. So I'm now wondering if my understanding of that VVT valve is actually wrong. So let's come back to VVT-A settings and put the inverted no, and the other one, in case my understanding of how it works. What we know is that they were different to each other. Before today, now they're the same as each other, but same in a different way. So let's, it's not asking me to reboot the system, so let's see what happens, and I'll leave that again. So again, we'll watch and see what happens. And well, I'll probably leave it at that point, because I'm not taking the car out today. I haven't got time. Say that idle is better, in fact considerably better. So I think that's an improvement, and I also think that my understanding of my VVT control valves is wrong, or was wrong. That's probably the best idle that I've had on this car. So that's interesting in many ways. And the other thing, as far as that rev limit thing that I mentioned, I think that actually is. I think it actually is a rev limiter, and it's there because the engine's cold. So let's not worry about that. So anyway, that, my friends, is an improvement. It's, as I said, cold. And even for the fact it's now idling better, that's a good thing, and as I said before, a useful step towards having a finished tune on this engine.